All right, so today a little bit different. Like I said, we're not actually doing a PowerPoint. But we are going to go through NASM's. We're going to be working our way through the CPT textbook, like your actual NASM textbook. We've learned a little bit about like some core stuff and flexibility stuff, but the weight loss manual really doesn't do a lot of that in very good detail. It's not really the purpose of the weight loss manual. But our purpose is definitely to make sure everybody in here knows program design inside and outside and backwards and forwards. So we kind of need to understand like all of the components that make up like an overall like OPT workout, right? So if we're looking at that, I want to pull up. Yeah, that is what I want, but not right now. I gotta find this specific instructions. The heck is that? Oh, that's yeah. Where is it? Let's go into the old recesses of the computer here. Okay, close. Okay, this will work. All right. So let's take a look first at like a blank OPT template. So this is where we're going to kind of write our workouts, right? And when you're filling this out, we're going to kind of just follow the instructions and kind of go step by step. But you have to make sure that you are focusing on like what part of the OPT your client is in, right? So if we look at the OPT model here, right? These are each of the individual levels and each of the individual phases and things like that. And when we look at it, God, that's so funny. There's like, this looks different than when I Googled it just a minute ago. But here's the OPT model right here, right? Right on NASM stuff. Like I said, it is 3 different levels. Now the levels are going to signify your exercise selection. Okay, so like when you are picking exercises, they are either going to fall into the stabilization category, the strength category, or the power category. There are no like strength endurance exercises or max strength exercises. These phases here are what determine like your rep scheme and acute variables, but exercise selection is always going to be chosen based on these 3 levels right here, right? So if your client is in the stabilization level, you are going to stay on the stabilization checklist, which is actually something I'm going to send out today. So I went back a long time ago and put all of like every exercise that's in your textbook into like one big list. And like that list is going to work for any client in, whichever phase of training they happen to be in. I need to find the right darn thing. Here we go. So here's the stabilization exercise checklist, right? So in stabilization, you'll notice like we're going to start with corrective flexibility. Okay. So corrective flexibility is going to consist of self-myofascial release exercises and static stretches. Okay. Whereas like if our client was in the strength level, we would give them active flexibility. And if they were in the power level, we would give them dynamic flexibility or functional flexibility. Sorry. So functional flexibility, these are just slightly different versions on the same theme here, right? So if we look at this, right, you can see the self-myofascial release exercises, that's actually the same list every time, right? SMR, the gastric nemus / soleus, it's on page 177, right? This is all exactly the same, although that's got a little typo there. I don't know why that's like that. So you can see like all that's totally identical when it comes to the foam rolling. But then if we go down to like our active isolated stretches, you're going to notice that like in the static version, it's going to start us off with a static gastric nemus stretch, which is on page 181. And if we move to the strength checklist, it's going to say active gastrocnemius stretch with pronation / supination, which is on page 186. So we move a couple pages forward, we stretch the same muscle, but now we're doing it in a very different way. And, static stretches are where we do these big long holds. Active stretches are where we actually contract and relax during our stretches, which draws the muscle into deeper ranges of motion. So they're both used to improve like range of motion, but they're just slightly different than each other. And then dynamic stretches, you can see we've got something like a prisoner squat, which is, a body weight exercise, or a multiplanar lunge with reach. So this is what's appropriate for a client in the power level. This list is what's appropriate for a client in the strength level. And this list is appropriate for a client in the stabilization level, okay? So we want to make sure that we know like the differences between these. We want to know like the defining characteristics of, okay, well, like why though? I mean, you could just follow the rules, right? You could just like say, well, my client's in strength endurance, and so I'm going to pick, these exercises. And you could do that. You could absolutely just like stay on that list and, kind of paint by numbers and stuff, which is great actually. But we don't necessarily want to only rely on that. We want to kind of know the why behind the OPT model's design. So in order to do that, first, let's really quickly go over what our OPT template's going to look like, right? It's going to be, we're going to have our contact info at the top. We're going to start with the warm-up, which will consist of all of the flexibility stuff I just mentioned, and a little bit of cardio. And then we are going to have our movement prep section, which is the core / balance / reactive section. Then we're going to have our SAQ section, so that's speed, agility, and quickness. The resistance section, which is, your total body exercises, chest exercises, back, legs, shoulders, biceps, triceps, right? And then our cool down is going to be, again, the flexibility / cardio sections, right? So as we're going through an OPT template, you can see one of the things we did here is we've got an example of like, we would warm up by starting with a little bit of SMR. And let's say this is an upper body example, right? This would be an upper body workout. And this workout this is definitely not how we would write it in the real world. But this is just an example of like what you would do in an upper body routine. You got the static stretches here, the active stretches here, the dynamic stretches here. So you can think of this as like, I would do this and this. If it was like my first month working with somebody, I would do this and this. If it was my second month working with somebody, and I would do this and this. It was my third month working for somebody. And I would be moving them from phase 1 into maybe phase 3 into phase 5, right? And we'll talk about the phases here in just a minute, but that's level 1, level 2, and level 3, right? Then you can see we worked a little bit on the movement prep. So for stabilization, and we didn't do movement prep. We just go straight to resistance training in this example. So you can see like, here's how we would actually set things up. Actually, I'm going to come back to this. We'll come back to this like part a little bit later when we start really writing some stuff down. So in terms of exercise selection, let's go ahead and lay that out for ourselves, right? Let's go ahead and get a Microsoft Word document open here, like a blank one. And we're going to go ahead and start with, we'll say with like an all phases guide to NASM's OPT model. Okay, so we are going to have different sections here, just like we do on the OPT template, right? That is going to start with the warm-up, right? Warm-up. And then we are going to, after that, move into our movement prep, right? After that, we'll move into the speed. We'll move into SAQ, right? And then we'll move into resistance section, and then we'll move into the cool down. Okay. So this is, and we'll make this like look like an actual title. We'll make it all big and bold and centered and stuff. All right. So for the warm up, like I said, this is going to consist of a flexibility section, and it is going to consist of a cardio section, right? And actually, I am going to have a separate like cardio section here. we'll say this one is like cardiovascular exercise. All right, so there's our flexibility, right? Now, let's go ahead and break this down if our client is in level 1. So level 1 only consists of a single phase, right? Level 1, which is stabilization, like I said, that's gonna determine our exercise selection. We're gonna focus on stabilization exercises. And it only has one phase within it, which is the stabilization endurance phase, okay? So if our client is in level 1, we'll put that here. We'll go level 1. And then that's going to consist of phase 1, right? Which is going to be stabilization endurance. Okay. So now we got to put down our exercise selection. So this is acting kind of like a flow chart here, right? So for exercise selection, we are going to choose corrective flexibility. And corrective flexibility is going to, you know what, I should really use just bullet points for all this. This is starting to get a little bit messy. Let's pull, actually, we'll leave this alone, but we'll put bullet points on all these and shift them back just a little bit. That'll work. Okay. Yeah, that'll work. All right, so for exercise selection, we're going to choose corrective flexibility. Now, what does corrective flexibility consist of? It's going to consist of SMR, self-myofascial release, and it's going to consist of static stretches, okay? So that is what we do when it comes to like choosing our exercises. For clients in phase 1, and this is what you guys need to remember, clients in phase 1 are going to be applying corrective flexibility, okay? Corrective flexibility, like I said, is going to be self-myofascial release, so that's foam rolling, and static stretches. Now, if our client is in phase, good Lord, what happened to my bullet points? Why are these not lining up anymore? What? Hold on a second, I gotta fix this. Otherwise, this isn't gonna work all day. YouTube back over here. There we go. Oh, Charlie's joined us. What's up, Charlie?
Hey, what's up, bro?
So if our client's in phase 1, we go with corrective flexibility. That's self-myofascial release, and that's static stretches. If our client is in phase 2, right, that's going to be there, or if they enter into level 2, right? So level 2 here, this is going to have 3 phases with it. We're going to have phase 2, which is that stable strength endurance. We're going to have phase 3, which is hypertrophy. And we're going to have phase 4, which is max strength. And here's the thing. It doesn't matter whether they are in strength endurance or hypertrophy or max strength. It really doesn't matter. This is going to apply to all 3 of these. They are going to, for exercise selection, get exercise selection. They are going to get active flexibility. Okay, so what does active flexibility consist of? Well, it also consists of self-myofascial release, so foam rolling, right? But it also, this time instead, is going to consist of active, isolated stretches, right? So for example, like if you were writing a warm-up for a client in the stabilization level, you would say, okay, you're going to foam roll, and then you're going to static stretch this muscle right here, right? But if your client is in the strength level, you are going to say, all right, you are going to foam roll and you're going to active isolated stretch. Andres, Kenny, you guys following so far? Any problem with that?
Yeah, I see. But everybody's got to go through it, right?
Yeah, well, you don't necessarily have to do every single phase. That's a really great question. You don't necessarily have to do every single phase every single time. For instance, like weight loss honestly focuses primarily on like phases 1 and 2. These are our two highest calorie burn phases here, actually. These are the ones that burn the most energy, just because like they happen to be really high repetitions, right? So these are both really good for calorie burns. But once your client starts to get pretty close to their goal, now it's like, okay, well, we're not just focusing on calorie burns. Why don't we also try to gain some muscle? So then you can maybe take your client through phases 1, phase 2, and phase 3, right? But then, like, let's say you're training an athlete, right? You have an athlete, like a football player, right? They're going to focus primarily on hypertrophy, max strength, and we're going to see power here in just a minute. So it kind of depends on like where you are headed with your client. It depends on like what their overall goals are and what you want their year to look like. Like me, for instance, I'm staying in max strength for the end till the end of this month. I've been doing max strength for all of January and all of February. And then I'm going to do a little bit of power in March. And by the time, like, those are 3 very intense months. So after that, I'm going to drop right back down into stabilization. And that's going to be sort of like my goal over the next like couple months, because I'm trying to sort of improve like a little bit of my strength and power there. But yeah, that's a great question. You don't necessarily have to take everybody through it, but you do want to start most people in stabilization and then work your way from there, because this is really your foundational stuff, So then let's say our client, and actually I'm going to do one more. I'm going to goof this up one more time, actually. This is an all phases guide to OPT models exercise selection, because that's what we're mostly talking about. We're talking about exercise selection here. So now I'm going to make one little adjustment to our chart, just because this is going to make it a lot cleaner. I'm going to move this phase 1 up here. Level 1, and then we'll put this in parentheses. Yeah, that's going to be a lot cleaner. Then we don't have to have quite so many bullet points. Be a little less intimidating. And so level 2, which will be phase 2, which is strength, endurance. Phase 3, which is hypertrophy. And phase 4, which is max strength. There we go. And then I can delete all that and move that there. There we go. That's a lot cleaner. All right. So that's our exercise selection. So for exercise selection, it doesn't matter what phase they're in. It just matters what level they're in. Okay. And then we've got level 3 here. So level 3, right? And this is going to be power, right? Which is really just phase 5. It only has one phase within it, which is also called power. And actually, I guess I will change that as well. Level 1, which is stabilization. Right, that'll be phase 1, and then level 2, which is strength, and then level 3, which is power. There we go. All right, so with level 1, it's only got the one phase, and with level 3, it's also got the one phase. But in level 1, it's the first phase, and in level 3, it's the 5th phase. So that's one thing that's like sometimes a little confusing, just learning how to keep this language a little bit separate. We've got level 1, level 2, and level 3. We've got phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, and phase 5. So keep your levels and your phases separate. Remember, levels determine exercise selection. This is how you pick which exercise to do. And then phases determine how many reps how many sets, how heavy you're going to lift with those exercises once you've picked them. Okay, so again, we're going to go with exercise selection here. And this is going to be functional flexibility is what we call it, right? And functional flexibility, just like the other phases, will still consist of self-myofascial release. So no surprise there. But this time it is going to consist of dynamic stretches. Right. So now, if we look at that over, like, let's say I'm doing like a 3-month period, right? And I start with stabilization, then I move my client into strength, then I move my client into power. I might start them with like this big static hold, you know, where they're holding their chest and they're rotating, and they're getting this big pectoral stretch here. And I would hold it for like 30 seconds minimum, right? And that would be a static stretch. That would be a static pectoral wall stretch is what that's called. I would hold my hand against a wall and I'd drive it forward, right? And so then I would do, like, a month later, I would move into a strength level, right? I would then do like an active stretch version, right? So what I would do, rather than holding it for a full 30 seconds, I would stretch for about 2 seconds, and I would relax the tension, and I would stretch for about 2 seconds, and then I'd relax the tension, and I would do 8 to 10 repetitions of that, okay? Then a month later, rather than doing like static or active stretches, I'm going to do dynamic stretches. So I might do something like arm circles, right? Reverse or forwards, or maybe arm swings, right? Something that is a little bit more dynamic. And that's how these exercises are different from each other. And that's where, you know, this exercise selection, this OPT template, really comes from, right? This is really the whole purpose of it, is so that we understand, you know, how to pick these exercises. Does that make sense to everybody? Anybody having trouble with that at all? This is probably, what's that, Andres?
What's that?
What'd you say? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I didn't say anything.
Okay. So yeah, this is probably, I'd say, that like some of the most important stuff in the whole program here, right? Like this is mostly, we revisit this every module because this is where most of your questions come from. There's like stuff where, you know, they're phrasing it in such a way that you have to understand. So let's look at cardio here, right? So we're gonna kind of reset this here. We're gonna have our level 1, and we'll take our level 2, and we'll take our level 3. Click the wrong spot. We're gonna take these 3, we're gonna copy them, and we're gonna paste this down here in cardio land. And we're gonna look at our rules here, right? So for level 1, clients in the stabilization level, right? What I'm gonna do for exercise selection, right? Now, this isn't necessarily like exercise selection, really. Like this is instead really looking at like your stage training. But it follows along very similarly to the OPT model, right? It doesn't always have to follow the OPT model. Sometimes your client will progress strength-wise before they progress cardio-wise. So maybe you might have a client who's in level 2 doing like stage 1 cardio, but if your client is like a blank slate, you know, for the most part, you can focus on your cardio selection here. Very similar to the OPT model. So rather than write exercise selection, I'm actually going to delete that. If our client is in the stabilization level, we are going to focus on stage 1 cardiorespiratory training. Okay, and this is actually kind of an important distinction. It's not necessarily so, you'll never be tested in terms of like having to write this out this way, but you want a little bit of a guide to understanding how NASM like writes stuff out. They always list the stages in Roman numerals. So they are referring to stage 1. If you see a Roman numeral, you know they're referring to stages. Whereas if you see like an Arabic numeral, like a normal number, that's going to be where they're talking about zones. So stage 1 cardio is going to consist of only a single zone. It's going to consist of zone 1. Which is going to be 65 to 75% heart rate max, right? Kind of like we talked about in class already. Whoa. Sorry, the wind picked up and it startled me. So we've got stage 1 cardio. which will consist of zone 1. And that applies to all of our clients in level 1. I told you this is kind of like paint by numbers, right? Like you just we kind of follow the instructions. We put the ones with the ones in the 1 slot. Now, if our client is in the strength level, they are going to get a stage 2 cardiorespiratory routine, right? Right, and that's going to consist of zone 1 again. So we'll say zone 1 here, 65 to 75% heart rate max, but it will also consist of zone 2. And that's 76 to 85% heart rate max. Okay, so now in stage 2 routines, it's official. We've introduced the concept of interval training, right? Now we can start doing a little bit of medium intensity intervals, like 76%. That's, not crazy difficult, right? I mean, like it's definitely getting your heart rate up there. Maybe we'll average it out. We'll say this is, you're fluctuating between 70 and 80% of your heart rate max. That's pretty good, but it's not necessarily like getting fully exhausted, gonna blow a gasket, wiped out cardio, right? So that's stage 2 rather than, getting into zone 3, which is a stage 3 cardio, right? And that's what we'll see here, right? We see our level 3, we get a stage 3 cardiorespiratory training, which will consist of zone 1, which is that 65 to 75% heart rate max. We've got zone 2 again, which is 76 to 85% heart rate max. And then we've got zone 3, which is 86 to 95% heart rate max. So there we go, right? We've got, it's official, we put all of it together with our client in that final, stage 3, right? And then we would just recycle through this, right? We would maybe have like, let's say your year looks like this, right? Pull up go to an annual plan here, right? Let's say this is exactly what your routine looks like, right? This is the kind of a, whoops, kind of just a really, really, really basic routine here. We're going 1, 3, 5, just over and over and over again for the whole year, right? 1, 3, and 5. If this is what your year looks like, you would start your client with stage 1 cardio in January, move them to stage 2 cardio in February. So they start doing, medium intervals for February. And then they've got their high intensity intervals in March. And because that was so intense and, probably had a pretty big effect on their body, we're going to reset the system in January and start over, right? We'll go back to that stage 1 style of training, stage 2 style of training, stage 3, and we're just kind of cycle through this, right? And that is going to, build their overall endurance, their peak capacity. It's going to build all of it, and we're cycling. So the body really never has a chance to get super used to anything, it never really has a chance to plateau. Does that make sense to everybody? Any questions on the cardio part? All right, cool. So that's our cardiovascular exercise. I just realized I should put that down here. So actually, yeah, I'll just delete that. That's how it's gonna work. Okay, so there's our cardio. Let's take a look at movement preparation. So movement preparation is going to have 3 pieces here. It's going to be core training, it's going to be balance training, and it's going to be reactive training. Okay, so core exercises are obviously the stuff that strengthens your entire lumbopelvic hip complex, so that stabilizes your pelvis and holds your spine in place. Then we got balance training, which is all about like your stabilization leg. So it's like teaching your body how to, develop proprioception and neuromuscular efficiency, teaching you how to recruit the right muscles at the right time. And then reactive training is all about teaching your body and your nervous system how to respond to things as quickly as possible. You're literally, sometimes this is called plyometric training, which I like. I don't dislike that term, but I really like the term Reactive, because it kind of paints a picture. I mean, like that's really what it is all about. It's learning how to react to something. When you land, your body recruits all of its muscles the second it feels like touching the ground. And it's like, oh, we got to decelerate, and then it decelerates you, right? And it helps you. Like, you know, we've all stepped off of a curb, or we've all like been going downstairs, and it turns out there was one more step, you know, like, and then you're like, whoa, where's the ground? And then you find it, and your body recruits, and hopefully you don't sprain an ankle, you know. So this is where, like, you know, reactive training comes in. So here, our exercise selection is going to look just like this. We're going to have level 1, right? So this is going to be clients who are in the stabilization level, right? And actually, I'm just going to copy level 1, level 2, and level 3 again, and we'll put them right here. So for core training, level 1, level 2, and level 3. Clients who are in level 1, in terms of exercise selection, they are going to get core stabilization exercises, okay? Now, how do we know something is a core stabilization exercise? Well, it is an exercises, how do we tell if something, you know, like who made these rules? Like what makes something core stabilization versus like core strength, right? Well, core stabilization exercises are exercises that strengthen the core and well, I won't put that actually. These are, we'll say, core exercises that focus on stabilizing the spine. They are defined by not moving the spine. Okay, so core stabilization exercises are the types of core exercises where you do not move your spine or pelvis. We're thinking things like planks, bird dogs, floor bridges, prone cobras, stuff like that. So if I look here, I go to my stabilization checklist, right? And I scroll down and I look at my core stabilization exercises. I'm looking at stuff like marching, right? Which is this.
Start laying on your back with your knees bent and feet flat on the floor. You should not feel any pain in your lower back.
So she's not moving her spine, right? Actually, you know what? Mute. She's not moving her spine, but she is like strengthening her core here. She's teaching her core how to hold itself in one spot while she does this. A dead bug would be a really good example. This is like a slight progression. It's exactly the same concept, right? Only this time we're not, you know, we're moving, we've got a longer lever, right? The lever between, like, you know, her foot and like the top of her hand, that's a much, much, much longer lever, which means that, you know, that's going to put more stress on the spine, but still not moving the spine, right? Or maybe we have like a bird dog. NASM is going to call this the quadruped opposite arm, opposite leg raise, which is way more commonly referred to as a freaking bird dog. I don't know why we had to get so fancy with it. But here's that, right? So again, the spine is staying in one spot as she's moving, you know, elsewhere. So these are really, really great exercises, right? But they are not moving the spine. That's what makes them core stabilization exercises. So, you know, if we were writing this out, we would pick, you know, one off of this list here. And you guys are going to find this list in 2 spots. Andres and Kenny, you guys will find this in the chapter 7. So you'll see like page 235 through 236, or go to the back of your book in the appendix. You'll find it in the 570 pages. So there's 2 spots where you're going to find exercise examples in your textbook, in the chapter itself, and then later on in the appendix. So we've got them all kind of laid out here in the exercise checklist. So kind of finishing up our example here. So exercise selection, these are core stabilization exercises, which are core exercises that focus on the stabilization of the spine. They are defined by not moving your spine. Now, in the strength level for exercise selection, right, we are going to choose core strength exercises. You guys should be seeing a pattern by now, right? You know, core, you know, it's all named after stabilization, right? We have core stabilization, we have balance stabilization. Then we move into strength. We have core strength, we have core stabilization, balance strength, balance stabilization, right? All of it's named after like what section you're training and then what, level you happen to be in. So for exercise selection, we choose core strength exercises. These are core exercises that focus on concentric and eccentric force production by moving the spine through a full range of motion. Okay. So that is what we're seeing there, right? Core exercises that actually do move the spine. So if I look at my strength checklist and I scroll down to core strength exercises, the ball crunch, the back extension, the reverse crunch where my legs are coming towards me, cable rotations, knee ups, which I did yesterday and making me really sore, lift and chops, right? Reverse hyperextensions, all of those things that actually move our spine, right? That is core strength. And then we've got core power. And core power is like our final level here, right? So we're going to have exercise selection. And these are going to be core power exercises. And how do we define those? These are core exercises that focus on rapid force production through a full range of motion. Okay, so now it's like, okay, so we started by strengthening the core by not moving our spine. Then we strengthened our core further by learning how to move the spine. Now we are learning how to move the spine fast, right? So these are focusing on rapid force production through a full range of motion, and then we'll say at functionally applicable speeds, aka fast, right? That's really what we mean when we say that. So we're just trying to move them as fast as possible. So now if we look at our core power exercises, right, and we go down here, we see the rotation chest pass, right? So that would be like a twisting of my core as I throw a medicine ball, right? It would maybe be like a front medicine ball pullover throw, right? So I'd crunch my spine and throw it, right? Or a soccer throw or a side oblique throw, right? So I'm using a lot of medicine balls here to move my core really, really rapidly, right? So I started with planks, then I started doing crunches, then I started doing crunches where I'm, as I get to the top, I'm, crunching so hard that it results in a ball getting thrown, right? So that's what we see in terms of our first setup in exercise selection here. You guys have any questions about any of that? Does that all make sense for the core stuff? Feeling good, everybody? All right, guys, chime in if you need any help with any of this. This is the most important in all this. If you forget everything from the whole class, this is what you need to remember. So let's look at our next section here. We are going to take, we're going to take a look at balance training, right? With balance training, every time. This is going to be, same concept here. We're going to see, level 1, level 2, and level 3. For level 1 in balance training, our exercise selection should be picking up on the pattern by now, right? We're talking about balance training. We are in stabilization. Therefore, we are going to do balance stabilization exercises. And these are going to be balance exercises that focus on developing static control by not moving the balance leg. Okay, so these are balance exercises that do not move your balance leg. Okay, so if we look at our list here, you can move something, but you can't move your balance leg. If we look, there's an exercise like the single leg balance, right? Which is literally, single leg balance is literally this: hands on the hips, stand, stand and hold. That's the whole exercise, right? Then we've got a single leg balance with reach. So you would stand on one leg and reach your leg forward, reach it to the side, and reach it back, forward, side, back. There's the single leg hip rotation, which would be bringing it up and then rotating and coming back to center. There's the single leg throw and catch. So I'd actually have a medicine ball in hand and I would throw it at my trainer and then my trainer would throw it back to me and I'd be holding myself up on one leg, you know. So now it's like, don't forget, like balance stabilization, you can move something. You just can't move your balance leg. The leg that I've got planted on the ground never moves through any range of motion because I'm trying to teach my brain how to hold that leg in one position, okay? Now, that is totally not the true, that's totally not true when we move into the strength level. For our exercise selection, right, we're gonna have balance strength exercises. Right, which are going to be balance exercises that focus on moving the balance leg through a full range of motion. Okay, so these are the balance exercises where, yeah, we are moving our balance leg, right? So a good example of that you can see here is like the single leg squat, right? So, you know, I went from not moving my leg at all to now, like, you know, squatting down and I'm performing hip flexion, I'm performing knee flexion, I'm performing ankle dorsiflexion, right? All three joints in my leg are moving through a full range of motion. Or maybe I do a single leg Romanian deadlift, right? One leg all the way down and I bring myself back up. Maybe it's a step up to balance, right? I step on a step, you know, which moves my joint and then I come up into a, you know, balance position. So moving my balance leg through its full range of motion there. And then we have our level 3 in power. We've got our exercise selection. These are going to be balance power exercises. And again, we're going to see balance exercises that focus on moving the balance leg through a full range of motion. So look at that. That sentence is literally identical, right? Like no moving the balance leg, moving the balance leg through a full range of motion, moving the balance leg through a full range of motion. But then we got one little extra tacked on here at the end, at functionally applicable speeds. There's a big NASM way that sounds really fancy to say fast. We move the balance leg fast, right? So now, if I look at my balance power exercises, this would maybe something be like a multi-planar hop with stabilization, right? So break that down, right? Multi-planar means I need to move through all three planes of motion: sagittal, frontal, and transverse, right? So multi-planar, and that's a hop with stabilization. So I'm on one leg, and I'm going to jump sagittally. I'm going to stabilize. I'm going to jump frontally. I'm going to stabilize. And I'm going to jump transverse. And I'm going to stabilize. And there we go. There's my multi-planar hop with stabilization. I could do a single leg box jump to stabilization. I'm not going to jump on my friggin' step there, but you know, if there was a box in front of me, I could jump up on it and stabilize, right? I'm going to move my balance leg super, super explosively and fast, right? And that is going to be my balance power exercises. Now, last part of movement prep here, we got to kind of follow the entire rep scheme again, right? Did I do it right this time? Yes, I did. So now, if I've got a client, you know, who's doing reactive exercises, if they're in level 1, you guessed it, exercise selection. These are going to be reactive stabilization exercises. And these are going to be reactive exercises that focus on developing landing mechanics and little to no movement upon landing. AKA, you're going to learn how to land, and that's what's important, and you're going to hold yourself there. We're not learning how to jump again just yet. We're just learning how to land. So reactive stabilization exercises really don't move your body after we land, right? So we go back to stabilization checklist here. We're going to see a lot of like blah, blah, blah to stabilization, right? Squat jump to stabilization, box jump to stabilization, multi-planar box jump to stabilization, cone jump to stabilization, right? So you guys might know, and this is the thing, this is where this gets really important. Like Charlie, we've been through this a couple times, you've heard this, but Andres, Kenny, this is where it's really important to know that there's a difference between a squat jump and a squat jump to stabilization. They are two totally different animals. One is like an elephant and the other one is like an elephant seal. Two totally different animals. They sound similar, they are nothing alike, right? So the squat jump looks like, this is probably what you're used to, right? You're probably used to, you know, classic squat jump, nothing fancy there, right? But then the squat jump to stabilization looks like this. You're gonna jump, and you're gonna hold your landing, and you're gonna jump, and you're gonna hold your landing, right? Two totally different exercises, even though they sound really, really similar. So we go back to our notes here. We start kind of filling this out, right? So reactive stabilization exercises focus on holding your landing. Then in the strength level, we've got our exercise selection, which is going to be reactive strength exercises, right? And these are reactive exercises that focus on developing landing, not developing landing mechanics, focus on developing concentric and eccentric force production through a full range of motion. Okay, so now it's like, okay, we're learning how to like eccentrically lengthen our muscle and concentrically shorten it, you know, over and over and over again. It's focusing on like the first introduction to like a stretch shortening cycle, right? That rapid lengthening that causes that rapid shortening. And then in our power level, we're going to take that to the extreme. So now our exercise selection is going to be reactive power exercises. And these are reactive exercises that focus on developing concentric and eccentric force production at through a full range of motion at functionally applicable speeds. So again, same thing, right? I learned how to hold my landings. I learned how to rebound on my landings. I learned how to rebound on my landings as fast as possible. So, you know, reactive power exercises might be something like the best example is like an ice skater, right? And I can't do, actually, I guess I can do it this way. But I could go side to side, right? My left determines how fast I do my right. Any questions there? Kenny, Andres, how you guys feeling? Chime in.
Very good.
Very good. Kenny?
All good.
All righty. So that's our first hour. I'm actually really quick. I gotta run to the bathroom again. Give me 1 second, guys. I gotta take a quick. Everybody, take a quick bathroom break or get some water. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Okay, so now we've kind of gotten our way through the movement prep section. Now we're going to kind of go ahead and take a look at the speed, agility, and quickness section, right? So this is really where we get into, the athletic stuff, right? Speed training, agility training, quickness training. So this works a little bit differently. There are no like SAQ stabilization, SAQ strength, SAQ power exercises. This is a little bit different. Instead, what we look at is we basically do speed exercises for clients who are in stabilization. We do speed and agility exercises for clients who are in strength. And we do speed and agility and quickness exercises for clients who are in power. So it's kind of similar to cardio, right? Like we did just zone 1 with stabilization clients. Then we did zone 1 and zone 2 for strength. And then zones 1, 2, and 3 for power. Kind of similar, right? So we're going to go ahead and put these here again. Oops. So for stabilization, our exercise selection is going to be SAQ exercises that focus on limited horizontal inertia and limited unpredictability. So just to break this down for you guys, what that means, because I know this is the first time Andres and Kenny have heard this. When when we say SAQ, we mean speed, agility, and quickness, right? I guess I can push by this whole thing. So speed, and then we'll call this agility, and then this would be quickness. And that's that. Okay, so so when we're looking at that, right, speed exercises, just so you know, like a speed exercise would be like sprinting from cone A to cone B as fast as you can, right? Or going through a speed ladder is a speed exercise, right? And doing like 2 ins, like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 through the speed ladder. You're going in one direction as fast as you can. That's a speed drill, okay? Now, let's say you are going to run from cone A over to cone B and then over to cone C, over to cone D, back to B, and back to A. So you do what's called a T drill. Sprint, side shuffle, side shuffle, side shuffle, back pedal, right? Or, you can just, I guess, turn the whole thing. But you're changing direction, right? That directional change is an agility drill. So speed is traveling in one direction, agility is changing directions. And then there's quickness, which is actually about changing body position. If agility is about changing body direction, quickness is about changing body position. So if I threw something at you and you had to turn your body and catch it, that's a quickness drill, right? You have to react to some external stimulus and change body position. So let's say I put you in the middle of, let's see, a modified cone drill. That's what I want. Sorry, modified box drill. That's the regular box drill. Is this the one I want? I think this is the one I want. No. Wow, that's actually incredible. Just for the sake of it, we're going to take a second here. That's kind of cool. He's throwing cones at him. That's a really good example of a quickness drill. He doesn't know where they're coming, so he does kind of have to respond to them. That's pretty good. That would be a quickness drill, right? The one I'm trying to find is what's called the modified box. I'm trying to do a video of it, but the modified box drill is basically where you set yourself up in a center cone here. So you would stand at this cone in the center, and then there's 4 cones around you, and you would number them 1, 2, 3, and 4, okay? And what you would do is the trainer is you would say 2, and they would have to sprint to cone 2 and then back to the center. And once they get back to the center, you're going to say a different number. So you could say 2 again, right? And they have to sprint and then come back. You say 4, and they have to go back to the 4 and then back. And then 1, right? 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 4, right? And they have to sprint back and forth as fast as possible. They don't know where they're going to go. You have no idea what cone you're going to say. And so that's the modified box drill. And it's a quickness drill because they don't know, they have to respond to some type of external stimulus. So the way NASM is saying that, the way that they kind of like to lay that out, is their exercise selection. They're going to say SAQ exercises that focus on limited horizontal inertia and limited unpredictability. It's a big fancy way of saying, speed drills. Okay, so we'll put that down here. Speed drills primarily. Okay, now if your client is in the strength level, your exercise selection is going to be SAQ exercises that focus on greater horizontal inertia, but limited unpredictability. Okay, so we're allowing horizontal inertia now, meaning we're allowing directional change, but we're still limiting the unpredictability. We're not doing the quickness drill, right? We're not doing something they're not expecting. So a regular box drill would be great because that's a 4-directional change. But the modified box drill, they have to respond to an external stimulus. That's not going to work as well. So this is going to be speed drills and agility drills. Okay, so we start to introduce both those. And then if our client is in level 3, our exercise selection is going to be SAQ exercises that focus on maximal horizontal inertia and maximal unpredictability. Okay, so now it's going to be speed drills, agility drills, and quickness drills. So now we can incorporate all of them. So the first month, I might have you run a couple drills through a speed ladder. The next month, I might have you run through that speed ladder and then do some directional changes at the cones. And then the month 3, I'm going to have you do a speed ladder, run through the directional changes of the cones, and I'm going to throw a baseball at you that you have to catch or something like that, right? And that's going to be how we progress that over like a 3-month period. Any questions on that one, guys? Everybody feeling good? All 3 of you guys?
Yes, sir.
All righty.
Can you hear me?
What's that?
You can hear me? Okay.
Oh yeah, I heard you.
Okay.
All right, so our final section here, the part everybody's kind of been waiting for, right? The meat and potatoes, right? Resistance section, right? So, until now, we were doing, we were kind of working our way through this OPT template. Now we're finally to the main part of our workout, chest day, leg day, back day, arm day, if you want to do a freaking arm day. All of the kind of traditional stuff, right? So, level 1, exercise selection. You are going to choose total body, chest, total, you know what, I'm actually going to be, sorry. I don't have this. Hold on. Yeah. So this is going to be kind of a long, exhaustive list here, actually. It's going to be total body stabilization, chest stabilization, back stabilization, shoulder stabilization, biceps stabilization, triceps stabilization, or leg stabilization exercises. Whew, big freaking list, right? So we've got total body exercises, we've got chest exercises, we got back exercises, shoulders, biceps, triceps, and legs. Those are your resistance body parts, and those are the stabilization versions of them. So what does that mean? These are exercises that are performed in unstable environments in order to develop maximal proprioception and neuromuscular efficiency. Right, so this is really the types of exercises that are basically teaching your body how to do these particular movements, right? We're really focusing on like how to move the body through these particular versions. Now we got to kind of do the whole thing for strength again, right? So the strength version of all this, I'm gonna copy this because it'll make it a lot easier for me to type it, and I'm just gonna change this to strength, and then I'm gonna copy that too. Boop, strength, 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 and strength. So total body strength, chest strength, back strength, leg strength, shoulder strength, bicep strength, tricep strength, right? Like strength versions of exercises. So this is going to be, again, kind of similar to how we talked about strength in our other, examples, right? These are going to be exercises that are performed in stable environments that move the body through full ranges of motion in order to develop maximal force production, right? So really our goal here is to lift in a stable environment, real heavy, really stable, to make sure that like we're getting force production ability, right? We're really just trying to be like, hey, I can lift 10 pounds, not anymore. Now I can lift 20 pounds, right? Force production is what we're going for here. I'm not learning how, to balance a plate on my head and do, a single leg, lateral raise, which is a really cool, kind of fun act to be able to do. And that would work really well in stabilization. But in strength, I'm learning how to lift heavier weight. That's really my goal here. And then we've got power. Oh, yeah. And power's exercise selection, that's going to look kind of like this. Again, I'm copying this so it makes it a little easier on me. But we're going to change this to total body power, chest power, back power, shoulder power, bicep power. That's not true. So power exercises, actually, we do not have biceps or triceps. We don't have single joint exercises when it comes to power. So we're actually going to remove that from that one. That is going to be, it's just going to be total body, chest, back, shoulders, and legs. Okay. And these are exercises that are also performed in a stable body environment that move the body through full ranges of motion at functionally applicable speeds in order to develop rate of force production. So the goal here is not necessarily to lift any heavier. The goal here is to teach us how to lift as explosively as possible. Really, 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 really quickly, right? That's the goal. And that's how the power side of it works, right? So if we go and look at our exercise checklists, right? They did a good job of kind of organizing these in a way that really makes sense. But take a look here we're going to go, we've got the total body stuff. We've got the chest stuff, right? I'm going to go to the chest stuff here just because it is the first out of total body. And total body is a little hard to kind of draw comparisons to because it just uses so many muscles all at once. But let's take a look at the different versions of these chest exercises, right? So I would go from my first month of doing like a ball dumbbell chest press, right? I'd be balancing on a ball, doing a chest press, which is really unstable, and I'm teaching my body how to stabilize my joints while I'm moving through that full range of motion. Then the next month, I would move into strength where I would do a flat dumbbell chest press. I'd be on a bench, very, very stable, right? And I'd be able to lift a lot heavier. And then in the third month, I lose the heavy weight and I get like a medicine ball and I try to move it as explosively and rapidly as possible. So a 2-arm medicine ball chest pass, right? Let's look at the legs, right? Month 1, I might start with like you know, a ball squat. So I've got a ball on my back and I'm stabilizing as I squat down. Month 2, you know, I would do like a much heavier squat, do the classic, you know, freaking, oh, that's right, the classic. They put the leg press on the book before the freaking barbell squat. I was so mad when I found that out. Yeah, leg press or a barbell squat, which is better. I do a barbell squat in the 2nd month. And then the 3rd month, I would do squat jumps. So it's kind of funny. It's like, wait, didn't we have squat jumps earlier? Like squat jump here and leg power. But didn't we also see squat jumps on the strength checklist earlier? Didn't we see that in plyometric strength? There's squat jumps again. So what's the deal? Why is it a plyometric strength exercise or is it a leg power exercise? The answer is yes. It is both. It is both of those things. If you use it in the movement prep, it's a movement prep for our strength level clients. But in our power level clients, it's, you know, it's actually like a resistance exercise. You know, you would put one as part of your movement prep. You would put the other as part of your leg day. Now, going back to finish up our little exercise selection chart here, our cool down is actually going to be kind of the same as our warm up, but really only for like, you know, it's actually going to look like corrective flexibility for all of this. So this is what's kind of interesting here. When we get to the cool down, you know, we've got level 1, level 2, and level 3. And earlier I mentioned like, well, if your client's in stabilization level, you do corrective flexibility. If they're in the strength level, you do active flexibility. And if they're in the power level, they do functional flexibility. But the reason we do that, the reason for this, by the way, like Andres and Kenny, they're, you know, we don't want to do static stretches before we try to lift really, really heavy. Static stretches have been shown to kind of make your nervous system a little groggy. And so, you know, if we're going to do the strength level, which means we're lifting for really heavy, you know, levels of force, I don't want to make my muscles groggy beforehand because I'm going to lose force production. And my goal is force production. So instead, we do active stretches, which don't have that same effect, right? They don't, you know, leave the muscles quite as groggy. And then why do we have like functional flexibility? Why do we have dynamic stretches? Those have actually been shown to turn the muscles on a little bit, which if you're trying to be explosive and powerful, that's exactly what you want. You want them to be firing really, really, really rapidly. But dynamic stretches might be dangerous for a new client. So we have, you know, static stretches to fix our, you know, mobility. We've got active stretches to make sure we don't lose any reduction of strength. And we've got dynamic stretches to turn our muscles on before we start working out. And they work for different clients and different reasons, right? But here's the thing. Once your workout's over, whether they're in the stabilization level or the strength level or the power level, the workout is over. They're going home. So do your corrective flexibility, do your static stretches. It doesn't matter if we turn the muscles off since they're leaving the gym, right? So if your client's in level 1, you're going to do corrective flexibility. And if your client's in level 2 for the cool down, you're going to do corrective flexibility. And if your client's in level 3, you're going to do corrective flexibility. So that actually all stays the same for each of these here. Oops, god dang it. I should have done that. And that is, there we go. I knew I could get to one page. That is that is literally an entire guide to basically all of the exercise selection stuff for the OPT model, right? You know what I'm going to do? This is actually, let's see if this looks dorky or not. If I copy that, move that here. I don't hate that. This should definitely not be centered, but copy that. Oh, shoot, hold on. Just delete the whole thing. Yeah, that looks kind of cool, I guess. All right. I definitely need to make that fit on the actual page, but I'll take care of that later. So that is kind of what the entire OPT template is going to kind of look like. Now, everything we just talked about is strictly from the viewpoint of exercise selection. And unfortunately, that's not your only job when it comes to writing workouts. You have to pay attention to the exercise selection, but you also have to pay attention to how many reps to give your client, how many sets to give them, what intensity, what tempo, rest, right? All of that is important, right? So now, before we can really write out a whole workout, we've got to get into the right number of sets and reps and tempos and things like that. So that is where, if you look in your textbook, guys, if you look in your textbook, you will find these little charts that look like this, okay? This one's going to be on page 374, if I'm not mistaken. This is going to be in chapter 14 of your regular textbook. So chapter 14, guys, we are moving to that one in your regular books. And actually, I don't want the strength endurance one. Give me stabilization, please. There we go. All right. So now you might be asking yourself, and how many reps, how many sets, like how to do all that stuff, right? Well, this is the chart. So let's say you've got your client and you're building a workout for them, right? And, you know, they're a client in stabilization, so they're in phase 1, right? So we'll say our client, you know, the example stabilization client, right? So in terms of your exercise selection, Andres, what did we say earlier? What type of flexibility do I choose for clients in the stabilization level? Pop quiz time. I think you're still muted, buddy. Uh-oh.
What was that?
Oh, I was asking Andres. We'll tell you what. Charlie, we'll take the first one to you. We'll take the first one to you because you've been through this before. But Andres and Kenny, pop quiz is coming your way. All right. So Charlie, what type of exercises am I going to choose for my stabilization level client here for my warm up? What am I going to choose?
Well, if you're gonna warm up, doesn't you want to do SMR?
Perfect. All right. So let's say, I'm just going to say they have tight calves. So I'm going to go SMR calves. Okay. What else? What do I do after that?
Could he do like a static stretch for his calves?
Nailed it. Yeah. So I'm going to do a static calf stretch. Perfect. And there we go. Right. We just applied it. We applied the OPT model perfectly here. So now I got to make sure that I pick the right acute variables. So if I look in my book, I'm going to do 1 rep for 1 to 3 sets. And my tempo, I'm going to hold it for 30 seconds because it's a static stretch, right? I'm choosing for my exercise selection, which is right over here. I'm choosing SMR and static stretches. So here we go. I would go 1 set for each of these. And I can pick up to 3, you know, but I'm gonna do 1. And my duration is going to be 30 seconds. And we'll do that for each calf. So 30 seconds each. And there it is. We applied it perfectly. Now, in my warm-up, I also want to make sure that their tissue temperature gets pretty warm. So maybe then I go put them in the treadmill, just to get their heart rate up. 1 set, 5 minutes, right? And then this is not really cardio. This is just 50% heart rate max, right? This is just a little bit for tissue temperature purposes.
Could they do maybe like jump rope too instead of a treadmill?
Love it. I'd probably, in this example, skip jump rope just because they've just, got done working.
Got it, yeah.
If I gave somebody tight calves, I'd be like, jump rope is not my best. Even treadmill actually probably wouldn't be the best option. But like a spin bike would actually probably be like prime here if they really do have that tight of calves. All right, Kenny, Pop quiz time. Now I need to pick a core exercise. What type of core exercise am I going to pick for my client in the stabilization level? Oh man, Kenny and Andres, you guys still here?
It could be as easy as a plank, right?
It would be, yeah. That's a great option. But I'm looking for the kind of title here, and I do want to make sure these guys are still here. Kenny, you still around? Andres, you still around?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Haven't quite heard Kenny. I don't know if you're trying to unmute, but I haven't heard from you just yet. So all right. So Andres, we'll take it to you. If I got a client in the core, in the stabilization level, what type of core exercises am I going to pick? What type?
Strength.
Well, they're in stabilization. They're in the stabilization level, right? So I don't want to pick strength exercises. So, I'm picking a core exercise, right? And what type is it going to be?
I'm not sure.
So we call them core stabilization exercises, right? We go back to this chart that we just built, right? And I take a look at it. My client's in the core. They're doing a core training. They're in level 1. Therefore, I choose core stabilization exercises. If my client was in strength, I would choose core strength. And if they were in power, I would choose core power. Got it?
Yep.
So I got to look at my list, right? I'm going to go here and I'm going to choose a core stabilization exercise. Charlie, you nailed it. You said the plank, right? So if I look on my core stabilization list, right, I got marching, 2-leg floor bridge, floor prone cobra, and then there's the prone iso abs, more commonly referred to as the plank. So that would be perfect. So you nailed it. So I go here and I'm going to choose plank. Okay. Now, I need balance, right? I need a balance exercise for my client. So Andres, my client's in stabilization and I need a balance exercise. What type of balance exercise?
Not sure.
So it's okay. So follow the pattern, right? So we
Sorry,
say,
I was having a little bit of a rap problem in my house.
oh God, okay.
Yeah.
No sweat.
I'm trying to listen. Don't worry.
You're good. You're good. So, again, my client was in the stabilization level and I needed a core exercise. So I picked a core stabilization exercise. If I need a balance exercise and they're in the stabilization level, I'm going to choose a balance stabilization exercise, right? Now, skipping forward a little bit, core stabilization, balance stabilization. Now, my client's still in stabilization and I need a reactive exercise. What do we call it?
Reactive stabilization.
Nailed it. You got the pattern, right? So that's how we're choosing this stuff. And then we just look on our little lists here, right? We look on our charts. So I need a balance stabilization exercise. I'm gonna pick the first one, single leg balance. Perfect, right? I go back to my workout and I punch it in, single leg balance. There it is. Cool. I need a reactive exercise. I said I needed a reactive stabilization or a plyometric stabilization, which is the same thing. That's something that's very confusing sometimes. Reactive and plyometric, identical words. They mean exactly the same thing. NASM uses them interchangeably all over the place.
So it's not two separate.
No, they're literally identical. Some people like to say plyometric because they're jumping exercises. And I do like that term. I like the term reactive better because it really does describe what your body is doing. Your body is reacting in real time as fast as possible. But yeah, they mean exactly the same thing. So squat jump with stabilization. Squat jump with stabilization. And there we go. So that is a perfect phase 1 exercise selection for this, right? So now I need to look on my chart and figure out how many reps, sets, what tempo, what intensity, how much rest to give my client, right? So for my core exercise, it's gonna be 12 to 20 reps. So, oh, and it's going to be 1 to 3 sets. So let's go with 3 sets of each of these, right? 1 to 3 sets is perfect. For my reps, I'm going to go with, let's say, 12 reps there, right? And we'll talk about what that means for a plank in just a second. For my balance exercise, it needs to be 12 to 20 reps, or if it's a single-sided exercise, which, by the way, it literally always will be. It's balancing, right? You're standing on one leg. It'll be 6 to 10 reps. So I'm going to go 6 to 10. No, I'm not. I'm going to write 10. 10 each, right? So I'm going to put 10 each in there. And then my squat jump to stabilization, that's 5 to 8 reps. So we'll have them do 8 repetitions there. So then my tempo, I got to go back, right? For my core exercise, it's going to be slow. So I'm going to write slow. For my balance, that is going to be also slow. So I'm going to write slow. And for my plyometric, it's this 3 to 5 second hold on landing, right? So I'm going to say 3-second hold on landing. Okay. Then I have got my rest period. 0 to 90 seconds, 0 to 90 seconds, 0 to 90 seconds. So I'm going to go 30 seconds each. Now put me right in the middle. I guess I could do 45. How's that making sense?
It is. Are you doing any heart rate?
Tracking their heart rate? Nope, I don't have to. Yep, these are all straight sets. Now I could do it if I wanted to do cardio. I could do this, right? I could make these each 0 seconds. And then I could track their heart rate, you know, and make sure that like I'm not taking it up too high or anything like that. I'm not pushing them too hard. You know, if they start landing in like zone 2 and I'm in phase 1 here, I'm pushing them a little hard, you know? So yeah, maybe I would change my rest a little bit. But since I'm doing straight sets, you know, for the most part, they're going to be pretty well recovered. So I don't have to worry too much about it. But great question. All right, Kenny, you with us? Haven't heard from you in a while. Yeah, might have lost him. All right. So Charlie, we'll take it over to you. Actually, this is speed, agility, and quickness, anyways, because this is the harder of this is the hardest part of the OPT in terms of exercise selection. So, Charlie, I'll pick on you a little bit. All right. My client is in the stabilization level. Therefore, what type of SAQ exercises am I going to pick?
But everybody used the same ones. We did. We went in person. What was it like it was like a straight sprint and then a back pedal. Could we do that?
Yeah, we can do a back pedal and a straight sprint. There's a little directional change there. You're thinking of the left test, by the way.
Oh, got it.
Which is great. The left drill, love it. It's one of my favorites. We could do that one. This is kind of where it kind of becomes your call. This is why this one is the hardest to know, because like, remember, our goal here is to primarily focus on speed drills. We don't want to do too much agility. We don't want to do too much directional change because that's not going to apply very well. Directional changes might be dangerous for a client in stabilization. But if you ask me, the left test is really much more of a speed drill. It is just a lot of straight lines back and forth. But even like that directional change of like here to here to here to here, I don't know. It's your call, right? Like, is that an agility drill? Is it a speed drill, right? It's not going to be listed in your book as one or the other. I'd feel comfortable giving it to a client in stabilization. So we're going to go with the left drill. Okay, that's LEFT. Sprint, back pedal, side shuffle, karaoke, sprint. And that's pretty good, right? Let's go with a speed ladder and we'll do a 40-yard dash, okay? Now, I looked in my rules here, my little rule book, right? If my clients do an SAQ, I'm going to do 2 to 3 reps, 1 to 2 sets, and this is going to be a moderate tempo, so nothing too crazy, and then 0 to 90 seconds of rest. So I'm actually, because the left test is kind of long, I'm going to give that 1 rep. But the speed ladder, we'll do 2 reps, and the 40-yard dash, We'll do 2 reps.
Are these all speed?
Yes, yeah. So the 40-yard dash is you're only going in one direction, right? So that's speed. A speed ladder, you would run through that speed ladder, and we'll call it 1-ins.
What about arm action kneeling?
I'm not sure I know that one. Is that just practicing this while you're in a kneeling position?
I'd seen it, yeah.
Is it you're not talking about the one where she jumps, right?
Hold on one second, I'm sorry.
You're good. Yeah, this is just practicing the arm action of sprinting while being in a kneeling position. Yeah, I'd put this in a speed drill, even though it's not necessarily like,
Okay, I'm back.
I would put this in a speed drill. Even though she's not necessarily like traveling in one direction as possible, she is doing very linear, like one directional movement. And it is focused on like, you know, her speed. So I would put this in a speed drill for sure.
Brad,
yeah.
what about suicides? Do they count?
Suicides are really an agility drill. Let's look at a suicide drill. So these sprints, right? So like that really is where we are kind of getting into some real directional change there, right? Because like these directions here, this is pretty short in the beginning. I skipped a little too far forward, but like this.
I haven't done suicides in ages.
What's that?
I haven't done suicides in ages.
Yeah, they're brutal, man. But I would probably consider this. I probably consider this an agility drill. It is one direction though. So remember, that's the thing about like stabilization. It says limited horizontal inertia. There's not a lot of directional change happening. So even though I consider this an agility drill, I still might give this to a client in the stabilization level. You know, I just don't want them moving at super, super, super maximal intensities or maximal velocities because I don't want them to hurt themselves. So I go to my little workout template here. We've got our examples. We'll do 1 rep and 2 reps and 2 reps, and then we'll do 2 sets of everything. And our tempo is going to be moderate. And our rest period, we'll give them we'll give them 90 seconds of rest each time because they're going to be pretty out of breath out of all that. All right, so now we got to get into our resistance section. So I'm going to choose one exercise each. I'm going to go with the total body, chest, back, shoulders, legs, biceps, and triceps. So that's going to be 7 exercises here. So we'll start with the total. I'm just going to kind of knock this out by picking the first one of every category. We're going to go with a total body stabilization exercise. So that's going to be the ball, squat, curl, to press. What have I done? What have I done? What? My God, I think I've glitched out Microsoft Word. I think I broke my computer.
Oh, wow.
That's not good. Oh man, this is busted. What happened? Look at all my friggin' wow. Oh no.
Can you get out the window and then just put it back up?
I hope so. It's all my Microsoft Words. They're all broken. Every document. All right. Let's hope that I didn't lose this whole thing because that's going to be frustrating. And here's the last one.
Yeah.
Yep, it's dead. That's all right. We're gonna be real quick here. Here's our example stabilization plans. Oh my God. All right, and they're in phase 1 because it's stabilization. So SMR, their calves, static wall calf stretch, and we'll say spin bike. All right, so that's 1 set of each, 30 seconds each, and we'll copy that. And we'll say 50% heart rate max. And we'll go with the plank. Single leg lift and chop. And we'll go with a squat, jump to stabilization. 2 sets each. 12 reps, 6 each. 8. Slow. 3 to 5 second hold on. And that was 45 seconds each. There we go. All right. And then we did the speed ladder 1 ends, the left drill, and we did the 40-yard dash. 2 sets, 1 rep, 2 reps, 2 reps. Moderate. Cool. There we go. We're back. All right. Now, total body, chest, back, shoulders, biceps, triceps, legs. So, I'm going to open my exercise checklist again here, and hopefully it doesn't break my whole computer. So we're going to pick the first one from every category, right? We're going to pick the very first total body stabilization, which is the ball squat curl to press, right? And then we're going to pick the ball dumbbell chest press. We are going to pick the standing cable row. We're going to pick the single leg dumbbell scaption. That's my shoulder exercise. For my biceps, single leg dumbbell curl. For my triceps, supine ball dumbbell tricep extension, which is a freaking mouthful. It's a ball skull crusher. And we'll do the ball squat here. And there's our 7 exercises, right? Cool. Piece of freaking cake, right? Again, paint by numbers, right? These are all, that's a total body stabilization. That's a chest stabilization, back stabilization, shoulder stabilization, right? So remember, again, so Andres, Kenny, Charlie, you know this. There is a difference between a bicep curl and a single leg bicep curl. They are 2 totally different animals used in 2 totally different scenarios. They may sound similar, but they are not the same exercise, right? Again, here's how I always like to show people. An elephant, right, which is this thing, versus an elephant seal, which is this thing. Sound the same, totally different, right? I stole that from a movie, by the way. Has anybody ever seen The Cabin in the Woods?
I love that movie.
I love that movie too.
Such a good movie.
And they're taking all the bets on like who's gonna, kill everybody, and they're
Oh,
like,
yeah, the merman.
yeah, right. And the one guy comes up and he's like, hey, I had zombies, and he's like, you had zombies. These are zombie redneck torture. Man,
Yeah.
totally different. There's a difference between an elephant and an elephant seal. I love that line so much. Okay, so our reps, right? Our sets, our tempo, our intensity, right? We're going to choose 12 to 20 repetitions, 1 to 3 sets, where tempo is going to be 4-2-1. So a single leg bicep curl is performed in a 4-2-1 tempo, which means I'd stand like this, I would concentrically move for 1, I would pause for 2, and I would eccentrically move for 4. And it would be nice and slow, right? If I was doing a shoulder press, same thing. Nice and slow. Right? So that is that 4-2-1 tempo. Now our intensity is the new one here. This is the one we haven't addressed yet. But when you're picking the weight for your client, you're going to choose somewhere between 50 and 70% of their 1 rep max, and then 0 to 90 seconds of rest. So, like I said, 1 to 3 sets. So let's go with 2 sets of everything. Our reps are going to be 12 to 20. So let's go with 15. And our tempo is 4-2-1. For my total body movement, I'm just going to put slow, but then I'm going to put 4-2-1 for all of these. Total body movements, it's really hard to be like, to do a real 4-2-1 tempo because that's a ball, squat, curl to press, right? So that would be, if I did a 4-2-1 tempo on a compound movement, like a ball, squat, curl to press, it would look like this. It would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 1 rep. Right? So we don't do it that way. And now I'm going to give this, like, let's say it's circuit training. I'm going to go with 0 seconds of rest for all of these. And give them 90 seconds of rest at the end. And there we go. I got my whole thing laid out. Now all I got to do is cool them down. And guess what? I'm just going to straight up steal my warm up from earlier and repeat it because I can do that. Right? So now I'm going to go here. They're going to do those static stretches again because it's corrective flexibility. And I have just written a perfect total body stabilization routine that is absolutely textbook. And honestly, you might be able to actually get through this in an hour if you were to move really quick. Might be a little bit tough. There's a lot of stuff to get through in 1 hour. I mean, this right here is really what's slowing us down. Actually, this part's what's slowing us down. This, honestly, this whole circuit would maybe only take like 5 minutes. But the rest of this is really slow. So, all right. Andres, Kenny, Charlie, how you guys feeling about all that? Any questions there?
Good.
Why we did what we did?
Yeah, I'm pretty good, bro.
Feel like you could do this?
The only thing was just like the speed agility, the speed portion of it.
The SAQ is weird. Yeah. SAQ, like I said, if they're in stabilization, you just try to pick drills that are mostly speed drills. If they're in like strength, try to pick speed and agility drills. Like left drills, suicide drills, those would be perfect in strength because they definitely do speed and they're doing directional changes. And then in the power level, you would like, you know, have them do those directional changes, but like every time they hit a cone at like the let's say they're doing a suicide, every time they hit a cone, throw a tennis ball at them, and they gotta like catch it and then drop it and then run to the next one, you know.
That's for quickness, right?
Yeah, that's quickness, like the reaction, like, huh, you know. Or like, you know, maybe 2 athletes who do like a partner mirror drill. So this is a really great quickness drill. They don't know who's going to go where, right? They have no idea like who's going to do what. So it's a little bit of a quickness drill. So what's going to happen is they're both going to line up and one person's going to chase the other person. And they're going to try and stay close to them. Just get you to do the freaking drill. Every video on YouTube is like a 10-minute intro. All right, so one of them is going to know, right? So he's juking and he's trying to get around the cone. I don't know why the coach is stepping in there bugging them, but like, you know, he's there to like, you know, he doesn't know what direction he's going to go. But the other guy is trying to respond to him, right? So they're both kind of keeping an eye on each other, right? And he's just a little like juke with the feet, right? And he's trying to keep him from being able to go over the cone. That's a quickness drill. Now that's like a contact quickness drill. That's very much like, you know, that was so very clearly like a football specific one. But here's like just like a classic, just a mirror drill, right? They're trying to see how many reps they can get, you know, from one side of the cone to the other. This person is chasing this person. So this person's trying to juke them out. It's an ankle breaking drill, you know? And that's the idea of quickness. It's all about reaction time. So it's actually, what's funny is it's actually not a quickness drill for the person who's trying to escape. It's a quickness drill for the person who's trying to catch them, you know? All right, so let's wrap everything up today. We got to go one time. We did stabilization here. We just went through and built a stabilization routine. Now, I'm not going to build a routine for all the other 4 phases, but you saw how we looked at the reps, we looked at the sets, and we plugged them in to our spots here, and it allowed us to make like a perfect stabilization workout. So I'm going to close this. I don't need to save it. But let's take a look at our overall, what I like to call big ass chart. So this is every rule in your book. So Kenny, Andres, Charlie, you two, you know this. You got to get this stuff memorized. Okay. So where is it? There it is. So this, like I said, there's going to be a rule for each of these. If you look at this, there's a table on page, I think it's 379 of your textbook. And then there's another one on 381 and another one on 383. There's these rules in chapter 14 of your regular NASM textbooks, that 6th edition book. I have laid them all out on one big chart. So let's look. You can see we've got stabilization in blue, we've got strength here in green, and we've got power here in yellow. And what this is going to be is, you can see the warm up and cool down. We've got our flexibility choices, cardio. For the movement prep, we've got core, balance, reactive, plyometric. We've got SAQ, and then we've got resistance here. And you'll notice that like all the reps and sets and stuff are actually identical for strength, endurance, hypertrophy, and max strength, which are all different phases, but they're all within the same level. So they're all the same rules until you get to the resistance section. There are different reps for strength, endurance than there are for hypertrophy, than there are for max strength. That is why there are phases, okay? So the movement prep, the warm up, the SAQ, that's identical. Strength, stabilization, power, they're all the same. But my strength endurance reps are all about high repetition strength, and my max strength reps are all about low repetition strength. So you're going to see different rules here. So I'm going to move through these really quick because we revisit this all the time, and today is mostly spent around like exercise choices. We'll talk about reps more in later classes, but you may get some questions on your homework that is like, how many reps for a client in stabilization? You need to know that it's 12 to 20. So stabilization endurance, we are going to do corrective flexibility. SMR and static stretches is what that is, right? 1 to 3 sets, 30-second holds. For cardio, you're going to do stage 1 cardio. Stage 1 cardio exists it has zone 1. That's the only tool within it. For your core exercises, you're going to choose core stabilization exercises. For your balance stabilization, or for your balance exercises, that's balance stabilization. And for plyometric, that's plyometric stabilization. And then here are the reps: 1 to 4, 1 to 3. I'm sorry, those are sets. 1 to 4, 1 to 3, and then 1 to 3. 12 to 20. 12 to 20 if it's a double-sided, which it literally never is. So that means 6 to 10 if it's single-sided, which it literally always is. And 5 to 8 reps. Slow tempo, 3 to 5 second hold on landing tempo. 0 to 90 seconds of rest, 0 to 90 seconds of rest, 0 to 90 seconds of rest. SAQ, limited horizontal inertia, limited unpredictability. That basically means you're going to focus on speed drills. 1 to 2 sets, 2 to 3 reps, moderate tempo. You know, try to move fast, but not crazy. 0 to 90 seconds of rest. For your resistance stuff, 1 to 3 sets, 12 to 20 reps at a slow 4-2-1 tempo for 50 to 70% of your 1 rep max. So if your 1 rep max is 100 pounds and you're doing 12 reps, you would lift at 70 pounds. If you're doing 20 reps, you would lift at 50 pounds. And 0 to 90 seconds of rest. Does that make sense, Andres?
Yeah, I'm
Cool.
following you.
Love it. Kenny, how you feeling? I think we lost him. I think I might have. Oh,
No,
oh,
right here.
hey, there you are. What's up, man? How you feel? We lost you for a bit.
Oh, no, right here.
Awesome. Okay, cool. All right, so now for the strength side of things, like I said, everything's going to be the same until you get to the resistance section. Okay, so we look over here. Oh God, what I did. So we've got active flexibility for all, whether it's strength endurance or hypertrophy or max strength, they're going to do active flexibility. SMR plus active isolated stretches. 1 to 2 sets, 5 to 10 reps. Hold each of them for 1 to 2 seconds, each rep, okay? Stage 2 cardio, which means now we introduce, they still do zone 1 from stabilization, but now we introduce zone 2, so we make it a little bit rougher. They're gonna choose core strength, balance strength, and plyometric strength exercises. And 2 to 3 sets for all of them, thank God, because up here it's like, it's so annoying. It's like 1 to 3, 1 to 3, and that's 1 to 4 for core. It's like, they broke the pattern. And then we see 8 to 12 reps, 8 to 12 reps, and we see 8 to 10 reps. So they broke the pattern again. So thanks for that, NASM. Medium tempo, and then we do a repeating tempo for our plyometric strength exercises, which means that they're basically going to go from one rep into the next. Probably the way you've done squat jumps in the past, where you do one, then you do the other, then you do the other, then you do the other. And then that's going to be 0 to 60 seconds of rest for each of those. For our agility, we allow a little bit of greater horizontal inertia. So now we're incorporating agility, but we still do a little bit of speed here. So you can do both types of drills, right? The reps are going to go up a little bit. The sets are going to go up a little bit. So 3 to 4, 3 to 5. Now they're going to be moving a little quicker. So a faster tempo and 0 to 60 seconds of rest. So no matter who it is, the, hold on 1 second. Amy from Sochi's calling me. I'm just ramping. So now we are going to do, we got to move into our resistance section. Now, this is where it actually does get different. There's a difference between strength endurance, hypertrophy, and max strength. Strength endurance is a little gentler. It's lighter, right? Because you're lifting for endurance. Hypertrophy is right in the middle. So it's relatively heavy, but it's not super heavy. And then there's max strength, which is like, you know, you're going to blow a gasket super heavy, right? So you'll notice our reps start pretty high, then they go down to medium, and then they go down to low. And our intensity goes from low to medium to high. And that's because sets and reps and intensity have an inverse relationship. As reps go up, intensity goes down, and vice versa. So there's also one other rule here, and this is what's kind of interesting. In strength endurance, do you guys remember how I told you strength endurance is almost like not a true phase 2? It's almost like a phase like 1.5, right? Like you're kind of blending your way out of stabilization really into strength. So you're going to start with a strength exercise and you're going to superset it. See a little plus sign here. You're going to superset it with a stabilization exercise. Okay. So what ends up happening is you do like a really heavy bench press, then you rack it and immediately go into a stabilization exercise with no rest. So you're basically going to burn your muscles out and really try to develop that endurance. Has anybody in here ever done like drop sets? You ever done drop sets?
What is that?
So it's where you lift really heavy, and then you set the weight down, pick a slightly lighter weight, and keep going. So like,
Yeah, that's what I do, Brad. I go heavy and then I cut it down to half, and then that's when I do the supersets as
Yeah.
much as I can.
so it's not quite a super, we call that a drop set, right?
Drop.
Yeah, so that's the term. So sometimes people call it running the rack. You'll hear that phrase every now and then. So they'll start with the heavy, and then they'll go one dumbbell set down, and then they'll go another dumbbell set down, until eventually it's like you got these little 5-pounders, and you're like, you know, and it's real heavy. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Cool. So these are not necessarily drop sets. Strength endurance is an actual superset. If you were actually Kenny, if you were to drop once, that would be a superset. I guess that's not necessarily a drop set. If you drop the weight one time, but generally drop sets, you'll drop, you know, two or three times. But in strength endurance, we drop once, and we drop it by changing exercises. We go with a stabilization exercise, we go with a strength exercise, then we pair it with a stabilization exercise. So I want you to imagine doing a really heavy barbell squat for, let's say, 12 repetitions, right? So you get the bar on your back, and 1, 2, 3, knock out all 12. You rack it, and then immediately step back onto a Bosu ball, grab a kettlebell, and then you're doing these really slow kettlebell squats for another 12 repetitions, right? So that really means that you did 24 repetitions, and the first half of it was really heavy, second half of it was a little bit lighter, so that you could keep going. So you're really pushing the endurance here. That's why this is the strength endurance section. You get the strength with the heavy movement, and you pair it with the endurance for the lighter movement. So that's going to be 2 to 4 sets, and it's 8 to 12 repetitions for each movement. So 8 strength plus 8 stabilization, or 12 strength plus 12 stabilization, or some blend in between. Your tempo is going to be a 2-0-2 tempo. That's medium for your strength movement. So that means, like, basically that classic tempo that we're probably all used to, right? But then we pair it with that slow tempo from stabilization, right? Boom. And then really crazy slow, making the muscles burn like nuts, stabilization part. 70 to 80% of your 1 rep max here for the weight, and then 0 to 60 seconds of rest, which is relatively low after the stabilization movement. No rest after the strength movement. You want to go right from the first movement right into the next movement, no rest. Then once you're done with the second movement, you rest a little bit. So that's strength endurance. And you can see, like, there's some stabilization stuff built in here. Like I said, it's like you're blending out of stabilization before you really go into, like, the heavy strength stuff. Now, hypertrophy, this is classic strength, right? It's just, pick a strength exercise, lift relatively heavy. That's it. Like, this is the most basic part of the whole OPT model. 3 to 5 sets, 6 to 12 repetitions, 2-0-2 tempo, and you're lifting at 75 to 85% of your 1 rep max, which is pretty high, but it's not like super high. And then 0 to 60 seconds of rest. That's it. Pretty simple stuff on that one, and then we've got max strength down here. This is like the true strength, right? Like, this is the defining strength phase here. So phase 4 is 4 to 6 reps. Notice how we went from 2 to 4 to 3 to 5 to 4 to 6, right? So our sets are going up, right? And our reps went from, really 16 to 24, right? So it's like really high. Down to 6 to 12, down to 1 to 5. That means it is freaking heavy. We went from a tempo of like a medium tempo to a medium tempo. And now we're listing our tempo as XXX. And here's the thing. I'm sure everybody in here has lifted really heavy before. You will know that, like, you don't actually get to lift super fast when you're trying to, like, lift heavy. It doesn't actually go wham, right? Instead, it's like, oh my freaking God, like, and then you drop it, right? Like, that's like super explosive tempo. That's what we're trying to drive it up really fast. So, instruct your clients when they're doing max strength to try to drive that weight up as fast as they can. They don't need to take a pause at the top, although make sure they do get locked out and then bring it down. Again, don't just drop the weight, bring it down with control and stuff, but it is relatively explosive, right? And that's a great way to apply that XXX power tempo to our max strength, which really is all about type 2 muscle activation. And then look at our intensity here, right? 70 to 80, up to 75 to 85, up to 85 to 100, which is why our reps got so low, right? And then our rest period, 0 to 60 seconds of rest, but technically no rest in the middle part. So very limited rest, to a medium amount of rest, 0 to 60 seconds, to 3 to 5 minutes of rest. Take a freaking nap. I want you recovered before set number 6. You know what I mean? So
Okay.
that's the true strength phase. What's up? All right, so then we got power here. Now, power is actually going to be kind of similar to strength endurance. We'll see that in just a second. But again, we start with our warm-up, functional flexibility plus, which is SMR plus dynamic stretches. Now this one, you're actually not going to, we've got a little bit of an extra requirement here, which says 3 to 10 exercises. So rather than just picking however many exercises for your overactive muscles, you're just going to pick 3 to 10 general body weight exercises here that are dynamic. 1 to 2 sets of each of those movements and 10 to 15 repetitions there. And that's going to be your warm-up section. This actually warms you up and counts as your cardio. So in the past, we put our clients on the treadmill for 5 minutes or whatever to get their body temperature warm. Their body temperature is going to be plenty warm after those 10, body weight exercises for 2 sets, Then they're going to go into stage 3 cardio. Stage 3 cardio will consist of zone 3 plus zone 2 from, level 2 plus zone 1 from level 1. So now they get a blend of all 3 of them because they are peaking with their cardio, right? They're hitting the highest level. We're in the power level, so we choose a core power, a balanced power, and a plyometric power. 2 to 3 sets for each of those, 8 to 12 reps for each of those, and all of their tempos are pretty explosive except for the balance one here. So explosive tempo for the core power, boom, they're being explosive with the abs. Plyometric power, boom, they're being explosive with their jumping movements, right? But their balance power, remember, balance was all about learning how to stabilize your body. So you're going to be explosive when you jump, but then you're going to land and hold your landing for 3 to 5 seconds. Yeah, what's up, Andres?
Is that how you would type the tempo with or the explosive X?
Yeah, you could either say fast or XXX, both.
Okay.
Yeah, you could write the word fast too if you want to. But when you're trying to explain it to your clients, I love to put fast for my clients because it helps them they understand it. But I love to put XXX sometimes, and they'll see it and they're like, what does that mean? It's well, the 3 parts to this movement, the squeezing, the unsqueezing, and then the transition between the 2. I want all 3 of those to be explosive. I don't want to see you pause at any point. So it just depends on how you want to write it. But yeah, some people, you can also just write fast. For SAQ, these are exercises that involve maximal horizontal inertia, so maximal agility, plus maximal unpredictability. So now some quickness, right? So quickness plus agility plus speed drills. And then we add a few more sets, we add a few more reps. This is definitely going to be as explosive as possible. This is maximum tempo. And then 0 to 90 seconds of rest, because this is actually really, really explosive. Our rest period actually goes up again, and then we got power. Now, earlier I mentioned, just doing power all by itself, which does work if you're going to do it that way. You could just choose power exercises by themselves, but NASM is actually recommending that you address both. So both sides, you hit both sides of the power equation, right? So you're going to hit both sides of the power equation by addressing force production and velocity production, rather than just velocity production. So with our weight loss clients, we're probably not doing the max strength movement. We would probably just do the power movement by itself. We mentioned that, I think, last night. But with other versions, right, if we're being really like, if I really want to develop power, I need both. I need force and velocity. So you'll see we're actually kind of applying sort of a similar strength endurance situation here. We have a resistance strength exercise, and we pair it with a resistance power exercise in a superset. So we would do the strength movement from our last phase, right? We would do the strength movement from here. Oh my God, this is glitching out again. And then I would pair that with the resistance, with the power movement from this phase. There we go. Now it's working. So I would go resistance strength plus resistance power. These actually should be green. I'll deal with that later. So 3 to 5 sets of that. And I would do 1 to 5 reps for my strength movement because I'm going to lift it very, very heavy again. But then I'm going to pair that with 8 to 10 reps of my power movement. So remember how I mentioned like doing a barbell squat onto a BOSU squat, and I went from heavy to light? In this version, I'm going to go from heavy to light again. So I'm going to do a barbell squat really, really heavy. But instead of doing a BOSU squat, which is really unstable, I'm going to do a squat jump or a box jump or a depth jump, which is going to be really explosive. I'm going to do that for 8 to 10. So I do my strength movement and I pair it with my power movement. And both of them are moving at an XXX tempo, fast as I can. My intensity is 85 to 100% for my strength movement. So again, really, really heavy. Or up to 10% of my body weight, or possibly 30 to 45% of my 1 rep max for my power movement. So NASM doesn't recommend this. But one of the best ways that you can really apply like power that I've had some kind of fun with, NASM does not recommend doing barbell squat jumps. Just because like they're, it can be it's a very technical movement and you've got this bar coming down your back, it might not necessarily be safe. But let's say, for the sake of argument, we say a barbell squat jump is a leg power exercise, and a barbell squat is a leg strength movement. So let's say my 1 rep max is 100 pounds. So I can lift exactly, the heaviest I can lift is 100 pounds when I do a barbell squat, okay? So I would do, let's say 85 pounds on the bar, which would allow me to do about 5 repetitions. So I'd have 85 pounds on my back. I would do 5 really heavy reps. I would rack it. I'd strip some weight off and take it down to, let's say, 30 pounds. Well, actually, it's a barbell, so I can't do that. Let's say I take it down to 45 pounds, right? So I've got just the bar on my back, and I would do 8 more repetitions, but I would do squat jumps, and I'd be as explosive as possible. That is going to help me develop leg power better than just doing squat jumps by themselves, or better than just doing heavy squats by themselves. Questions on that, guys? Feeling good? Cool. And that is the big ass chart. So you can see Andres and Kenny. Charlie, this is your second time seeing it. Hopefully it got a little bit clearer than the first time. But you got to get this whole thing memorized. Every word on it, every number on it. Get some flashcards. You got 9 months. But this is where, if you look at your NASM exam blueprint, if you look at your exam blueprint, we see program design is 21% and exercise technique is 22%. This is 43% of your overall test. So that's 43 out of the 100 questions about these numbers and which exercise should you pick if your client blah, 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 right? If they're in stabilization, should you choose the ball squat, the barbell squat, or the squat jump? If they're in stabilization, I'm going to choose the ball squat. And that's
what page is that on again?
What's that?
What page was that on again? The 5 pages?
So it's in all of them. It's page 379, I believe. Actually can't get to my book right now. Do you have it on you?
Yeah, I was looking online to see if it came up, like the one that you just had on there.
It should be page 379 is the first one, and then the next one is 381, and the next one is like 383. It'll have all those different, it'll have a chart for each one, but it's in chapter, here's chapter 14, and this is what your guys' reading is today. I want everybody to go through and read chapter 14 of your regular textbook. So until now, we've been doing like our assigned reading is like the weight loss manual. Today, that all changes. I want everybody to do the to read chapter 14 in your regular textbook, and that's your, I guess, homework. You got the whole weekend to go through it. That's all I got for you guys. I know it's a lot, by the way. I know that feels like a lot, but again, this is the number one thing that we revisit. You're going to do it 4 times here in the core. You know, we got 4 classes, 4 10-day classes literally built around this whole program design thing. And you're going to review it 2 times each in capstone. So
yeah, man, the first time we went through it, Brad, honestly, man, I was kind of like lost, and then this time around, like it's way clearer, honestly.
Right. And
Yep.
Charlie, here's what I really want. By the time we go through the 4th, I want you to be sick of it. I want you to be like, oh God, I know.
Yeah, I got it.
That's the goal, you know? So Andres, thanks for saying that, by the way. I know that it sometimes seems like a lot of numbers and stuff, but trust me, it really does get in there and it gets stuck forever.
It's just because it's like, Brad, maybe the first time around, it's kind of confusing, but like you said, we hear it so much that it just starts sticking with you, you know?
Yeah. It's a very different approach, you know, like so you go to traditional school, it's like you learn something once and it's like, hope you remember it forever, you know. We like to you know, we're very circular here. So Andres, Kenny, you guys got any questions? You feeling good?
Overwhelmed, but yeah, we're gonna read it, or I'll be more understanding on the Monday when I take a look at the book.
Tuesday, but yes. No school on Monday, by the way. It's President's Day. So there's a holiday on Monday. You guys
Still trying to look for it on the page.
What's that?
Still trying to look for it in the books.
Is it good? Are you in chapter 14?
Yes.
Man, I thought I had it memorized. I might have the wrong number. Try 372. It won't be one big chart, by the way. It'll just be, you'll have a stabilization chart, and then 2 pages later, you'll have strength endurance.
Sorry, I was going through all the books.
But yeah, it should be chapter 14.
Okay, I'll find it.
Do I have a PDF copy of this book? I just can't get to my book right now. It's unfortunately just stuff that I brought home from Christmas. I still haven't been able to deal with. No, it's not in there. All right. Well, I'm gonna kill the recording. See you on Tuesday, everybody.